អង្គុយចុះ
President, please be seated. The court is back in session. Before I hand over the floor to the defense counsel, I would like to inform the public in relation to the hearings of civil party, that is 2 TCCP 271. The hearing of civil party 2 TCCP 271 before the chamber was held virtually in closed session. The hearing of this civil party was then adjourned pending the chamber determination of a request for protective measures made by the civil party, namely the holding of the remainder his testimony in closed session and the preparation of an assessment report by WESU. The WESU assessment report, document E29/466, indicated that 2 TCCP 271 has since decided to withdraw his initial request for protective measures. Further to the withdrawal of his request to appear in closed session, 2 TCCP 271 will now appear in open session after the completion of the hearing of 2 TCCP 304 to complete his evidence before this chamber. This decision does not affect the chamber previous direction relevant to the procedure for the hearing of evidence concerning victims of sexual related offenses. I would like to inform the defense counsel for Mr. Kyu Somphon that in the first session, the chamber informed you that we will discuss the request of the defense team for Mr. Kyu Somphon, and the chamber has already decided. And I would like to inform, the chamber would like to request the defense counsel for Mr. Kyu Somphon to raise the matter or any request before we proceed to hearing 2 TCCP 271, perhaps in the afternoon. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope I understand what you are referring to, bearing in mind the decision you have just rendered. Under these circumstances, the application we are making is that the part of the testimony of 2 TCCP 271 will be in open session, and so we'll be able to refer to documents openly in examining this witness. That is the application we would like to make following your decision, that we would like to refer to those documents in open session with this witness.
Mon confrère vient de me dire que ce n'était pas forcément.
My colleague says that my application is not very clear in Khmer. The civil party was heard partly in closed session on the 5th of February because we were expecting to have protective measures in place. Today you have rendered a decision, taking into account the decision of WESU, that protective measures are not necessary. Under these circumstances, I would request that the closed session of the hearing should be in open session so that we can refer to this the testimony without any problems in future.
President, you may now proceed, Judge Lavanya.
Oui.
Yes, in order for us to properly understand your application, what you're asking for is that the transcripts of the hearing should be made public, bearing in mind the fact that there are no longer any need for protective measures and that the hearing will be in public. Is that what you are saying? That is indeed what I am applying for. I had hoped that it would be clearer in French.
I would like to know whether other parties would like to make any comments or observations.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have just consulted with Counsel for Saisen, and she says that there's no obstacle to having the application by Kyo Sampan's defense counsel granted by the chamber.
President, since there is no objection, the chamber allows and grant the requests of the defense counsel for Mr. Kyo Sampon in relation to the hearing of civil party Soy San in the afternoon. I now hand over the floor to the defense counsel for the accused who put the line of questioning for the civil party. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Civil Party, I have a few more questions to you, not many, and that is relating to the same alleged actions that were undertaken at the Krang Tachan compound. My following question is, have you ever seen fellow guards or other cadres taking out and subsequently eating the livers or gallbladders of executed prisoners at Krang Tachan?
Answer: no, I did not see this.
Thank you, Mr. Civil Party. I would like now to read to you a small excerpt from a statement to the investigators of the investigating judge of a fellow guard, Mr. President, that is D40/20. It's a statement of Sim. And I would like to read to you what he has said about alleged killings. However, before I ask this question, I would like to ask you, do you know if Sim, your fellow guard, is still alive today? And if yes, do you know where he lives?
Answer: Sim is still alive. He is living far away from my place. He is living in Tropang Thom area.
Is that in Samrong sub-district in Tram Kok district?
Answer: yes, it is in Samrong commune, Tram Kok district.
Did you see him recently? Did you meet with him by chance, or you saw him somewhere recently?
Answer: I never met him.
Very well. Mr. Civil Party, this fellow guard of yours, in his statement D40/20, English ERN 00433573, French 00524323, and Khmer 00165334, is giving the following statement, and I would like you to comment on that. The questions are related to alleged killings at Krang Tachan, and he says the following. The question is as follows: what sounds did you hear while they were killing prisoners? And then he answers, I heard them playing a loudspeaker. They always used the prisoner's sen to play the loudspeaker and dig the pits to bury the bodies of those killed, the bodies of the prisoners. You've testified earlier about the loudspeakers not being there, and not seeing Sai Sen digging pits, etc. What is your reaction to this particular testimony of your fellow guard, Sim?
Answer: for prisoners who were killed at that place, or concerning the loudspeakers being played during the time of the killing, I was not aware of this matter. I did not see the loudspeaker. I did not know.
So according to your recollection, there was no loud sound being played during alleged executions in order, I don't know for what reason, maybe not to have other prisoners hear it. That didn't happen in your recollection, is that correct?
Answer: that is correct.
Mr. Civil Party, in your recollection, was there, besides the buildings where prisoners were held, also a dungeon, a hole in the ground where prisoners were being kept?
Answer: I did not see the dungeon or hole.
I would like to read to you an excerpt from a post-1979 report, that is E3/2062, English ERN 00301366, Khmer 000-79439. I'm afraid I don't have the French ERN right now. And I quote from this report as follows, just to be clear on this issue. From late 1975 until 1977, they developed new methods of torturing. There was a square underground dungeon, 2 meters on each side and 5 meters deep. Additionally, they weaved barbed wires inside and roofed it with wooden boards. They dug the earth to the depth of a man's height, then put white lime in that hole and covered it with a wood board. Next, they used a vice to squeeze the temples of the prisoners and hit their chest. Have you ever... No, let me rephrase. You never saw such a dungeon where this was done to prisoners. Is that correct?
Answer. I did not know about this. And when I was transferred to Clandestine Security Office, I did not see the dungeon.
Another question also relating to this report. Was there at the compound a so-called, I hope I pronounce it correctly, strychnine tree? Sorry, Mr. President, it's the same document that is ERN 00301366 and Khmer 000794440. I'll repeat the question. Mr. Civil Party, was there a strychnine tree at the compound?
Answer. As I explained already, I did not see it.
Thank you. My last question to you, Mr. Civil Party. You have been giving testimony this morning. You've been giving testimony yesterday. And I suppose my last question could be simply answered with a yes or no. Have you been telling the court the truth and the whole truth?
Answer. I did not get your question.
You have been testifying this morning and yesterday. You have been asked many questions. Did you, when answering these questions, always told the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth to the trial chamber?
Answer. In relation to my statements and my responses, they are all true.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. President.
President, thank you very much. I now give the floor to the defense team for Mr. Kiew Sampon. You may now proceed. Counsel Kong Samon. Thank you, Mr. President. I have a few questions for the civil party. My questions are very short. First, I would like to know your civil party application. I read document D40/21 and document D22/88. These are your document and statement you provided on two different occasions. For the former document, you were asked an interview as a witness, and 1 year later you became a civil party. I would like to know on what basis you changed your decision to become a civil party. Answer. I would like to tell you that I filed an application to be a civil party a long time ago when I lived when I was at Chiroi Chongwa, and after that I was asked to find a new lawyer. I did not know where to find a new lawyer for myself, and I was recommended to go to the tribunal to find a new lawyer. And I was suggested that I should remain to be a civil party. I lost my father, my relatives or siblings lost their life in the period at Krang Dajan. That is why I would like to remain a civil party. Counsel, I would like to clarify my question concerning the dates in the document that I refer to. You were recognized as a witness by the court already in the past. You were interviewed on 28 November 2007 as a witness. And the letter recognizing you as a civil party dated the 15th of September 2008. So it was almost a year that you have made your decision and you became a civil party. Could you clarify this matter for the court? Answer. The reason that I filed an application to be a civil party because I had my father and a relative or sibling suffered from the period of 3 years, 8 months, 20 days. Counsel, thank you very much. You were interviewed as a witness in 2007 by the Office of the Co-Investigating Judges. Did anyone go to contact you and to ask you to become a civil party instead? Counsel, I did not recall the date you mentioned. Counsel, my question is different. I would like to know whether there was someone to convene and contact you to become a civil party instead of a witness. I did not refer to the date. Answer. I did not know when I was interviewed at that time, and there were a few interviews, and I did not possess any documents. Counsel, thank you very much. Could you tell the court who those people who went to convene and contact you to become a civil party instead of a witness? Answer. I would like to tell the court that not only the tribunal went to interview me, there were many other representatives from various organizations who went to interview me. I knew that there were many people going to interview me, and I knew that people from the tribunal and also lawyers perhaps went to interview me as well, but I did not recall the date as I mentioned. Counsel, thank you very much. Did you ever meet a researcher from your recollection? And did you give many interviews regularly to the researchers? Answer. Concerning the interview, as I said, there were many interviews by the Radio Free Asia, and also there were other interviewers from various countries. I did not recall them all. Counsel, thank you very much. Coming back to the fact that you file an application to be a civil party instead of being a witness, did you recall that there were one person or many people convince you to be a civil party instead of a witness? Answer. It appear not. I myself wanted to become a civil party, but I did not know when I filed the application to be a civil party. Counsel, thank you very much. You already stated in the court hearing that you were one of the victims at Krang Tajan in the previous stage, and you also stated that you were one of the guards at Krang Tajan security office. I would like to ask you one question concerning your position as a guard. Did this position can hold you responsible for the action happening at Krang Tajan security office? Answer. As a combatant and a former soldier, I worked in Krang Tajan until the liberation of that period. I was not the head or the leader there. I did my duty following the order from others. Counsel. I did not mention about the orders that you received from others. My question is that were you asked to be in charge of any action in relation to the killings or in relation to any action happening there? Answer. I was in charge of my duties, and I could see that I could know that there were killing, and the skeletal remains are still today in the area.
Counsel, maybe you misunderstand my question. I did not ask whether you saw what happened at Krang Tajan, but my question to you is, are you responsible for what happened at Krang Tajan, including the detention, the execution, and the torture, etc.? So my question is simple. Do you consider yourself as part of the group, or consider yourself as an individual who is responsible for what happened at the Krang Tajan office? Do you understand my question now, Mr. Sivapati? Answer, no, I still quite don't get your question. Counsel, let me rephrase it. at the Krang Tachan office, and according to the charges under this court's jurisdiction, Krang Tachan was a killing site or a security center of the Democratic Cambodia regime, and you were a combatant as well as a guard at the Krang Tachan office. And at Krang Tachan, there were allegations that crimes were committed, including the killing, the detention, and the torture. And my question to you is that whether you are part of the group who is responsible for those crimes. Do you understand it? Answer. I am responsible for those actions. Question. Can you describe to the court what kind of actions that you are responsible for? Answer. I was responsible for the following acts: that I was assigned to guard the prisoners, that I were ordered to prepare lunch for the prisoners, etc. Counsel, thank you. Let me go back to the beginning of the line of question that I put to you. You applied as a civil party at this court, and you just stated that you are responsible for the actions that you just described to this court. Do you see any conflict of interest in these two statuses? President, Mr. Civil Party, please wait. And the lead co-lawyer for civil parties, you have the floor.
Merci, monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like a procedural clarification to be made at this stage. This is not an objection. My learned friend has the right to ask any questions he wishes to ask, but I would like to request that the chamber should inform the parties and the chamber that if Mr. Soisen is a civil party today, it's because the Office of Co-Investigating Judges in 2010 made that decision, and we accepted his application as a civil party on the 31st of August 2010, ordering that neither the defense for Kyo Sampan nor that of Nguyen Chia should appeal against that decision. The status of Mr. Soisen today as a civil party was decided by the co-investigating judges at the time in 2010. All the parties had the latitude to appeal that decision at the time. None of the parties appealed the decision. And we know today in this courtroom that the issue of the admissibility of the status of civil party of this particular person is not decided at the stage of the trial, but at the investigative stage. I would like this clarification to be made today because it is not up to the civil party to say anything regarding his status, because that status was decided by an order of the co-investigating judges in August 2010.
Counsel Kung Samon, Mr. President, I'd like to move on to another line of questioning. Mr. Civil Party, I'd like to ask you in relation to a document that is E319.1.23. And in particular, that is in relation to question answer 82. And allow me to quote. What was the estimated number of prisoners? I think there is a misspelling in the Khmer alphabet, and your response to that question is the following: sometimes 1, sometimes 3, and sometimes 5 or 30 prisoners. At some point, there was only 1 prisoner at the prison. Question: we were told that the figure was higher. Can you confirm? Answer 83. Such a number might possibly have been available under the supervision of the chain. Question: when did the chain leave the Krantachan Center? Answer 84. He left in 1974. Question: you also arrived at the Krantachan Center in late 1977, right? Answer 85. At the end of 1977 or early 1978, maybe in January or February during the harvest season, I was transferred to the army tasked with fighting the Vietnamese. End of quote. And my question to you is in relation to the number of prisoners at the Krantachan Center. As you stated in your answer 83, you said that the number of prisoners might have been higher under the supervision of the chain. And my question to you is the following: how could you know that the number might have been higher because you arrived at the Krantachan in 1977 with other fellow soldiers? But you also stated in this court that you were there in late 76 or early 77. So could you please clarify that to the court? Answer: I could not have a full understanding of the number of prisoners under the reign of the chain. However, at that time, I heard that a lot of former Luno soldiers were executed. And I heard that from the people living nearby that center, though I did not know when that center was established. Question: so you heard from people who were living nearby. Does it mean you went to talk to them and they told you that? Answer: in fact, when Tadam was there, he told me about it. Let me go back to the question that I put to you earlier, which you said that under the era of the chain, the number of prisoners might have been higher. Can you state it clearly? Did you know about that from Tadam or from the people living nearby the center? Answer: I heard it from Tadam, because Tadam was detained there during that time. Then he was allowed to leave, and later on he returned. Question: so you did not hear from the neighbors or from others living nearby, but you only heard from Tadam. Am I correct? Answer: yes, I got that information from Tadam. Question: Can you try to recall what actually was it that what Adam told you? Answer. When I was talking to him while I tended to the water buffaloes, I asked him about that. And he said that there were more prisoners who were former Lonol soldiers or civil servants previously. Counsel, thank you. Did you see any indication as to, for example, the burial sites, the pits that were left at Krantachan as a result of the killing of those people? Answer. As to the graves or pits of people who died, yes, I saw them. Question. Here I refer to the graves that remained under the reign of Tachin. Answer. There were graves, rows of graves to the south part of the compound, which was the result of the reign of Tachin. Question. How many graves were there? Answer. The graves for those who died at Krantachan, I did not count them, but I saw those graves. Though I cannot say how many graves there were, because there was a rice field where there were graves there. Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any further question for this civil party, and allow me to give the floor to my colleague.
Bonjour, Monsieur Sautseng. Je m'appelle Anta Glissé, je suis co-avocat international de Monsieur Kesampan et je vais vous poser quelques questions de suivi et vous demander des précisions. Je vous demande de bien vouloir écouter attentivement mes questions pour y répondre le plus précisément possible.
My name is Dagise, Counsel for Kesampan. I would like to ask a few questions to you. May I request you to listen attentively? I'll ask some follow-up questions for purposes of clarification. I'm particularly interested in the identities of the various officials you mentioned in your statement. In answers 10 and 15, you made mention of Tachim. You stated that he was district head at Tramkak and that he subsequently left for the East Zone in late 1976. My question is therefore the following. First of all, did you meet Tachim when you were appointed to Tramkak?
I never met the Tachim.
Comment avez-vous
How did you know that he was district head and that he subsequently left for the East Zone in late 1976?
I only heard of Tachim's name. That's all I heard about him, but I never met him or saw him in person.
J'ai bien compris.
I have understood that, Mr. Sotsen. My question is whether you never spoke to him and you never talked to him. In that case, how did you know that he was district head And how did you know that he subsequently left for the East Zone in late 1976? How did you come by such information?
Everybody knew who the district chief was because that was a senior position. For example, if Tachum was a district chief, then everybody knew because it was not a joke to mention someone as the head of a district.
Je vous demande simplement comment vous avez...
All I'm asking of you is to tell us how you got that information. Who told you that? Through what channels did you obtain that information? That is all I'm asking of you.
I knew that he was a district chief, and as I told you, because he was a senior person, so every combatant or every villager knew that Tachum was a district chief. And the same thing applies to Tamok, who was the head of the zone. Everybody knew that he was the head of the zone.
Et quand avez-vous appris?
And when and how did you learn that he had been appointed to work in the East Zone?
As on the events that he was transferred to work in the East Zone, in fact, I was not aware of that.
Alors pourquoi l'avez-vous
In that case, why did you tell the co-investigating judges that he wasn't working there?
No, I never said that.
Je me contenterai de cette réponse.
I'll make do with that answer. In answer 28, the same document, answering the same question, you said that the district had the powers to arrest people. So my question is, how did you know that the district had the powers to arrest people?
The district chief has the authority to arrest people, although I did not know how he would exercise that authority. I knew about that because the aunt used to communicate or send letters to the district office, although I did not know where the district office was located.
À l'attention de la Chambre.
A witness, TCW 809, in a statement E3/4626, stated that it was not the districts but the region that had direct authority over Krantachan. Mr. Salsen, did you know whether it was the district or the region that had direct authority over Krantachan?
I did not know who was overall in charge of Krang Tachan. I have no clear view on the change of command, whether it was at the district level or at the sector level.
À la réponse 27 du même document.
In answer number 27 of the same document, you made mention of a certain Tanev, saying that he was secretary of the region. My question is, first of all, how did you know that he was secretary of the region, and in what year was he appointed to that position, to the best of your recollection?
I did not know when Tanier was appointed as the sector secretary, but I knew he was the sector secretary at the sector that I worked under.
Dans un autre document,
In another document, this time D22/88, and the French ERN is 1055-820, English ERN 00-379-421, and in Khmer 00-354-364. You made mention of two people, and this is what you said. Free translation. I observed that the presence of Tarok and Takon at the center, both of whom were from the district office, was always systematically followed by the disappearance of detainees. End of quotes. Question: do you know who was Taros and Takon, and what were their exact functions?
I saw the cone and the rule, but I did not know the level of their authority. However, they only made contact with senior people, namely the An and the Chain.
et vous les avez vus
And did you see them on several occasions? If so, can you tell us how many times you saw them, if you do remember?
As to the number of times, I cannot recall them. It is difficult for me to say how many days they went there or how many times per month. It's very difficult for me to make such an estimate.
J'entends bien. Alors, est-ce que
I do understand, but can you tell us whether you saw them often or rarely?
I saw them coming to the center, but I cannot recall the date. They only came when they needed to come, and I did not know the nature of their visits to the center.
une dernière personne
A last person with regard to which I would like to question you is, do you know a person called Holhen?
No, Holhen does not ring a bell to me.
répondant hier
Yesterday, in answer to a question put to you by Judge Lavang, you stated that you had never been the head of the guards at Krantachan and that you did not have any responsibility over them. Did I properly understand your testimony?
Yes, that is correct.
vous avez également indiqué que
You also stated, and in this regard, I will quote your testimony D22/88, the same ERNs as before. That is to say, in French, it is 1055-800, 00354664, and in English 003794. And you described the work you did among the prisoners as follows. Free translation: I was in charge of taking care of detainees in their daily work, that is, tilling the soil, cultivating rice, I also had to count detainees when they went out to work and when they returned to their cells. I also had to work with them. End of quote. My question is therefore as follows. You also stated that your duties had to do with guarding the outside Krantachan Center. My question is whether you mounted guard outside the camp and you also monitored prisoners outside, or did you carry out these duties at different times, or did you do them simultaneously or at different times?
As for the guard duty, in fact, I stood guard for the prisoners who worked in the field, and when they had to be returned, then I had to escort them back into the detention building, and I had to make sure that the head count was correct. For example, if 10 prisoners were let out to work in the field, when they returned to the detention building, the number remained 10.
J'ai bien compris. Alors,
I have properly understood your testimony. I have a follow-up question. Generally, how many prisoners went out with you? How many prisoners could you take outside of the center on each occasion?
Prisoners were let out to engage in the work there, for example, to carry earth. And the number of them varied. Sometimes there were 5, sometimes there were 7. However, the maximum was 10.
je vous remercie. Et donc,
Thank you. But you didn't answer one question. The question whether the task of taking prisoners outside of the center was carried out at the same time you mounted guard outside of the center, or did you carry out both functions at different times?
As for the guard duty outside, in fact, it happened at the same time, because I did both the guard duty at the post and also to guard the prisoners while they were let out to work at the field.
selon la description de votre travail,
According to your job description, you worked essentially outside. Did you sometimes carry out tasks inside the center? And if so, what tasks did you carry out inside the Krantachan premises?
Inside, my duty involved cooking rice and feeding the pigs.
est-ce que dans le cadre de vos tâches, vous avez
As part of your duties, did you have the opportunity to enter Ta'an's and Tapen's offices?
I had access to where I slept in the compound.
Est-ce que vous pouvez précisément répondre
Can you be more specific in answering my question? As part of your duties, did you have access or did you have the opportunity to enter the offices of Ta'an and Tapen?
as for the office of the Ping, the Cheng, and the Ant, of course, I worked as part of the office there because I brought food to the prisoners, and the prison building was part of the compound.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. President, I see that the time is 11:30. I would like to start another line of questioning. I don't know whether this is the right time for us to take the lunch break.
And Defense Counsel, can you inform the chamber how much time you actually need, because the time allocation seems to run out already?
According to my calculations, Mr. President, unless I am wrong, we did not start immediately after the co-prosecutors, so I should still have about 20 minutes left by my reckoning, and I think I can wrap up my examination in about 20 minutes.
President, it is now convenient to have a lunch break. We will take a break now and resume at 1:30 this afternoon. And court officer, please assist the civil party during the lunch break and invite him as well as the visual staff back to the courtroom at 1:30 this afternoon. And security personnel join started to take Khieu Sampon to the waiting room downstairs and have him back into the courtroom this afternoon before 1:30. The court is now in recess.
សូមអញ្ជើញកោះឈរ